Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. Today, we have a phenomenal guest, and she is very captivating. She brings different perspectives into healing, into wholeness, into your journey. And basically, at this point, why don't we just let her tell us all about her? Welcome. How are you today?
Hi, how's everybody doing? It's good to see you.
So, just tell us about yourself. How you
Yes,
began, how your journey, how you got here.
awesome. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. I am a naturopathic doctor, and I also really love energy and anything energy. I have a small practice here in Louisiana. Maybe I shouldn't say small. I have a practice here in
Mhm.
Louisiana, but most of the people that I see are actually online. I have about 15,000 clients and patients that we speak over the phone or through Zoom, or I do biofeedback, like remote,
Mhm.
and I'm able to do diagnostics long distance to be able to send frequencies. I also love teaching, and I teach at conferences. I've been doing conference speaking since the late 1900s. That sounds so weird. I sound like such an old woman. Oh, like yeah, since 1995. Back That's so old, but yeah, I love teaching in masses of people. I also do small retreats and groups of people as well, and we host that. I have a podcast. Yeah, I kind of just dip my toes in a little bit of everything. I like to write. I have 5 books that are out, and I think the main the joy that I bring or have to bring to the table, or I guess my mission is to see people in their best and their highest, and to help people get out of whatever snags they may have, whether it is health wise, or it might be physical or emotional or mental or spiritual. And I really love like the whole integration of things. As a naturopath, I like to look at the root issues, which a lot of times that is a spiritual issue or it is an emotional issue. And, maybe like the Western type of model doesn't necessarily get to the root and or talk about, trauma or stress or things that are going on in people's lives. And I like to reverse engineer all that and help people get back into their best, because the way I look at it, we are all so individualized. We're so diverse and we're created so uniquely on purpose. And, you reach people that I may not, or I reach people that you may not. And we all have different circles of people and we all have our giftings. And you can have all the psychic readings and all of these, futuristic goals for yourself. But if you're not feeling well, or if there's like stagnant energy that's keeping you back from your highest timeline, then you're not going to do your very best while you're here. And I just want everyone to be the sharpest tool in the toolbox and to be their best version of themselves while they're here, because why not? We might as well do it since we're going to be here anyway.
Might as well enjoy the ride, right? So, how did you get into all this?
Yeah, well, I've always been drawn to the supernatural, to the kind of paranormal,
Hmm.
space, intuition, ESP, moving objects, without touching them. And I don't know where that curiosity came from, but I've always just been kind of, I don't know, really attracted. Maybe everybody has that. I don't know. But for me, that was like a big deal. And I didn't grow up in a like a spiritual or religious type thing, but that kind of came across and play a little bit when I moved to the South. My dad was military, and so we traveled quite a bit, mostly in the North, and then we did live in Europe a couple times. And so when I came to the South in Louisiana, I was introduced like to a Bible, and I would read about all these like really cool things that people were doing. And I was like, well, how come we're not doing this now? And how can we be doing this now? And I had read and seen movies about people who do this. And so it's like, this should be normal. This is not supernatural. This should be natural. And started trying to really look at energy and how spirit and science connect and bridge. Kinesiology, physiology. My undergraduate is actually kinesiology and wellness because I wasn't allowed to be a minister as a female in those days and in that particular organization I was in. But I just really muscle testing and energy and all of those kind of things were just fascinating to me. And here he comes back. He really likes you. So yeah, I just kind of one thing led to another. And, I was speaking at conferences mostly on the supernatural, dreams, visions, how to interpret that, how to hear that intuition, how to tune up into that. But then I ended up getting kind of sick physically. After traveling on 6 planes a week for 17 years, I think I just really got out of balance, and my body was just really ready to reverse and to to build back up and get back to health. And a lot of it was diet, a lot of it was stress. Just airports are a lot different now than they were, in the 1900s. I like to say that. That's so funny. But, people have more choices now. They actually have a lot of healthy choices. And so they even have places where you can take a nap. Like,
I know.
You can rent, little booths and stuff to take. We didn't have that stuff.
No.
So things are different, and I'm going with the times. I don't travel as much as I used to by any means. I've learned a little bit about balance, but I still love teaching. And mostly I use platforms like this and my own social media. I have my own YouTube and just try to educate people, inspire people as much as possible, and help people kind of maybe look at things differently, because I know I didn't look at things this way all the time. And so someone introduced it to me, and maybe I can introduce it to someone else, and then they can have their own beautiful experience and reverse engineer whatever's going on with them,
And so you've been doing this since the 1900s. I'm probably going to be using that now too. So sorry. And now, was the beginning of all this due to your own health, not just curiosity and not just, but did you go into it for your own well-being first? Did you have that aha moment?
I did. I went like 6 or 7 years to doctors trying to figure out like what is the mystery? Why am I having a low grade fever constantly? I was about 80 pounds heavier than I am now. I just could not lose weight at the time, and I felt terrible. Like everything felt achy all the time. Just a lot of weird, mysterious things, and no one could seem to figure out what was going on. They would do all these tests and, charge me all this money and deductibles and insurance and send me off to this person and that person and all the people. And then they would put me on these meds and that meds, and those had side effects. And now I'm on this. And, honestly, it was a rat race, a little bit of a circus, and it was exhausting to the point that I was just depressed, 7 years later, not feeling any better, loads of medications, not even knowing why or what was going on. And I finally met someone who, not only is an MD, but is also very much into like biohacking and electronics and understanding frequency. And he happens to be very spiritual, believes in source or God. And, I had not had that before. I've not, met anyone that bridged all those things together, science and spirituality and, emotions and physical, that was my first experience. And I think it's a lot more mainstream now. I think a lot of people are more aware of like some of the biohacking that I was introduced to back then,
Mm-hmm.
like red light therapy, ozone therapy,
Right.
biofeedback, PEMF, infrared sauna, blue,
Mm-hmm.
methylene blue, like some of these things that I had never heard of before back then. And this guy was into it way before, people were talking about it. And now I think with podcasts like this and, Joe Rogan and all these other guys, like they talk about this stuff pretty openly. And I think it's, becoming a little more acceptable to do preventative and or kind of electric type modalities to charge the body and to heal the body. And I think people are more understanding that we are frequency and that
Mm-hmm.
everything is frequency and that we truly can raise our vibration and we can have these lows that cause illness and open ourselves up to get ill in the first place and have entity attachments and how using substance abuse and alcohol will lower the consciousness, which brings in entities, which is why they're called spirits. And
Right.
all of these things that used to seem like woo woo and hokey pokey are kind of like being like, oh, that's normal, and
Mm-hmm.
are you seeing that too?
Yes, it is a lot more open talk about it, there's more knowledge about it, and a lot more people are more open to other things besides the norm, as I call it. The just going to the doctor and get medicines for this, or which a lot of the times, like you, for example, I was diagnosed with fibro. It took me 10 years, fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed,
Oh,
and it
geez.
took me 10 years for somebody to say, oh, this is what it is. But the way they wanted me to treat it was through all these chemicals and all this medicine. And like you, one to fix and one to fix the other thing, and then one more to fix the other things. And I was like, yeah. So it's, I look for also alternatives. So I always say it's a good marinade of Western and Eastern medicine, and
Yeah,
combine the two, that you find what's perfect for you. Because
yeah.
like you said, everybody's unique. So so tell me, how what inspired you to do the books, to write the books?
Actually, I had an encounter. Well, the first book I just wrote just because I wanted to educate people on how intuition works with the biofield
Mm-hmm.
and what to do and not to do. It was called Keys to Third Heaven, using Third Heaven Revelation to impact your world. Right after that, I wrote the Seer's Handbook because I do enjoy like visions and dreams. And I know some people will like hear things or feel things. And I tend to see things more. It changes. And I don't know if that's been the same for you, but I used to see a lot and dream a lot. And now I'm lately more paying attention to feeling. And sometimes I'll wake up and I'll hear things and, just to be aware of that. But that's where the Seer's Handbook came back, is how to understand the interpretation of those things that you see. Because sometimes it's like, well, what does it mean when the cow jumps over the moon and eats a box of cheese? It's like, must mean something. But, if you see that randomly in a dream or something, it's
Right,
like, how do you interpret that?
right, right.
So, but yeah, but then I wrote about signs and
Mm-hmm.
synchronicities, and I really enjoy that. I do believe that people, um, if they believe in signs and they are alive in signs and synchronicities, that they get more, because what you focus on, you get more of. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just to be aware of being aware.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an encounter in 2008 that I literally was in a very hard pressed type situation, end of a marriage, end of a career in some ways, and super ill. During that time that I met the doctor that I was talking about, was just really confused, really, seeking, fasting, just trying to figure things out. And I walked out of my bedroom one afternoon or mid morning, and when I got into the living room, there were these two ginormous beings of light in my living room, and oh man, that changed a lot. I was given a lot of downloads. They had all these books everywhere. They had a desk. Everything was very like, it, I couldn't touch anything 3D. It was like light. It was like
Mm-hmm.
iridescent colors and lights. And um, I came around to see like what this one being was looking at in the book, and it was records of what people were sick of, what they were healed of, how they were healed, on and on and on, just one line after the other, page after page. I mean, big, fat, like ancient looking books. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, wow, I was just overwhelmed. I was terrified. I had every feeling you could probably feel. And I remember there's one that was kind of female-ish, one was male looking, and the female looked over at me, and I heard her say, "What do you want?" And her mouth did not move.
Right.
And I was like, that startled me, and I just thought, I want to be a part of that, thinking, what's going on with these books. And she just said, she looked at the other guy, and they kind of like made like a motion, and then she pointed at me very serious, and she said, tell them they're not truly living unless they're living true. And then she like slammed the book, everything poofed out the way. Like I was, my living room was back.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was seemingly normal. I was shaking from the inside out. I felt like I've been on a lot of frequency type aids, and it was like a massive upgrade in frequency in my body, like to the point where I was trembling and could barely contain like my emotions. I was crying. I felt like I was being loved from the inside out, like this massive, overwhelming feeling of just complete and utter pure love. Um, I went to go sit down just to try to gather my wits end, and I was literally like, what just happened? And like, did I make that up? And my left brain was like, that's not real, and maybe you're in a dream. And I was just very confused. And I remember, because I teach on dreams, and one of the things about remembering your dreams is to write it down right away so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't dissipate.
Right.
And a lot of times when you write things out, you'll get more that comes
Mm-hmm.
through because you just start the kinetic process. And so immediately I'm like thinking,
Right.
I think I'm in a dream. I'm pretty sure this isn't real. And so I thought to myself, well, if it works when you're not in a dream, maybe it'll work within the dream. And I went to find a notebook and just start writing everything down. So kinetically, I would have more layers of remembering like what happened when I woke up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
except for I didn't wake up. I was still awake, unless we're still sleeping right now. I don't know. Maybe this is a dream too.
Maybe this is part of the dream.
Yes, I'm sure we're still dreaming. I'm sure it's all one giant dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. But I
Right.
started writing everything down. I had all these downloads of equations and understanding of words and things, and I was looking up like what I was hearing because I had never heard that before, like standing waves and echo waves, and how the biofield works, and consciousness. And I just drawing out, what I could see and everything. And, I told some people what happened, and it was trying to explain, what in the world this was all about. And
Mm-hmm.
really, a lot of what was recorded within that was having to do with essential oils. And I thought essential oils was just like some dumb kind of like thing that you put on so you don't stink, like a perfume. you know, I did not understand that there were like phenols and sesquiterpenes and monoterpenes, and all the things that work with your cells and your body and your brain.
Right.
So I took a deep dive learning a lot about that and how it works with the olfactory system and bypasses the frontal lobe and works with the limbic system to release trauma and clear trauma so we can clear the field and we can get better input because the output is shifting. But yeah, I just started, when I would do my conference speaking, I started saying, oh my God, I had this thing that happened and, you know, this happened and started telling people about it. And people were like, oh, you should make that a book, you should put that together. And so I did end up putting it in a book and published it. It's called The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love. And it's probably one of my
Mm-hmm.
most favorite books. And I still to this day, I will look through it. I'm not even kidding. I'll be like, what did I say with that? Like, because it's not even me. Like, it literally just poured out and came to be this thing.
Right. So you basically channeled the
Yeah,
book.
and I didn't even know what channeling meant. I never heard that before. So, but what's crazy is it's written very elementary. Like even kids can read it and understand it. I've had kids that are using it and applying it and getting results for
Mm-hmm.
miracles. My own children have used a lot of the applications. I have some teachers that are using them in homeschools to teach children young up on how to create and how to change things, how to shift energy. We talk about bilocation and I mean all kinds of fun things in there. But yeah, so that's kind of how the books came. My last one came out of being sick again. I went on keto back in 2015 when I got a diagnosis, and one of the things was like, hey, get off of sugar. And what's crazy, or not isn't crazy, what's divine is that same angel messenger being off person,
Right.
future me. I don't know who this person is, but I can still hear her at times and she'll tell
Mm-hmm.
me things. And she had said several mornings in a row, stop eating sugar, get off sugar, get off sugar. And I was just like, I wasn't overweight. I was like, what is this about? And it wasn't until about a month, and I finally followed, and said, okay, I'll stop getting on sugar. And I went keto for about a month. And then I ended up going to the doctor and finding out that I had a diagnosis of cancer at the time, which,
Mm.
here my intuition was telling me, starve it out and start working on this, clear this. And because sugar and carbs will feed cancer.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Being a warrior, a survivor. Yes, I know.
yeah. So so I ended up writing that. I did like an online course where I did a video
Mm-hmm.
every day for anyone who wanted to join me. And I still have that on my website for people who just want to reprogram. Um, because
Mm-hmm.
for me, part of my changes have happened when I know why, when I can understand the ins and outs of it. It helps me to be more motivated to do the things if I can understand it better. And so I did
Mm-hmm.
one on like why we're doing this and what it does and what are the benefits and who's the best candidate and how do you read labels and what is ketosis and what does it do to all the different things. And so I turned that into a chapter per video and then created that book out of that. So if people don't want to sit there and watch the videos for 31 days and reprogram their life that way, they can just read it a chapter at a time.
Very good. Very good. So this is the thing that I find very interesting, and I find that it happens to a lot of people is they have those aha moments where they see something or they see their guides or their whatever light being it is. Um, and that to me, that what you saw was kind of what I experienced, but I saw galactics basically, and they would take me into what it would be like a big ship that looked like a hospital with teaching hospital with windows all around, and I would be the victim and they would heal whatever it was I needed to
Wow.
heal, and then they would send me home with little instructions sort of and then I would wake up and I would start writing, and that would be basically the instructions: eat these, don't do this, do that, do this, da 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 da. And then I would be like, wait a second, what did this come from? Like, what was this for? So it's it's very powerful to hear that you did have those moments, because those are the moments that just shoot us into what we need to go to.
Absolutely. So did
N-
you when that happened to you, did you feel like it was a real thing or were you dreaming it or yeah.
No, it was a real thing. And then I went, yeah, I've been taken a few times to hold somebody else's
Oh
hands
wow.
while they're getting the healing.
Wow.
And although I didn't know them until the last few years, like I knew of them, I knew who they were. If I saw them on say Facebook or whatever, I would know who it was, but I didn't know who they were at that
Oh
time.
wow.
And so it was very interesting sharing that story with her at that, later on. And I'm like, I hope she takes it well. But she did. She was already knowing that she was having experiences, and so. But what did your children or the people around you um, kind of said when you were telling them about all this?
Yeah, when they were smaller, it was a lot easier. Matter of fact, my oldest daughter was seeing the Birdman, she called him, very young, to the point where my former husband would just freak out because she would talk about the Birdman. And I mean, one time they were just at the grocery store and he called me in a frantic and he was like, Shane's talking about the Birdman. She's saying that they're talking to her. And she was screaming and crying. And she said that she saw them everywhere. And she's older now, and I don't think she even remembers that. I've reminded her and I've told her about that, but and my younger kids, we practice a lot of this book
Hmm.
quite often, and they've done some pretty extraordinary things, literally even bringing back things that were lost back into, from nothing to something, like manifested
Hmm.
right in front of them. Been able to do some things at school that people said that they couldn't do, or even I was just like, are you sure? And just interesting things. But they're on their own path now. They probably think I'm a little bit nuts. In some ways they don't, and in some ways they're I don't even know if they've ever read the book, to be honest. But I mean, they've definitely lived it because they've
Hmm.
seen me and they know what I'm going to say. They're careful what to ask or to say because they know what I'm going to say. But that's part of their journey and what they do and
Hmm.
what they're, you know, we all kind of ebb and flow, and we have to have our own experiences, and we get to have our own experiences, and we get to make our own choices. And I'm learning and remembering how to be the mom that supports from over, and
Hmm.
just my word for this year is actually like radical acceptance, and just being like, you know what, hey, I'm here for you. And if you need me, great. And if not, you guys are getting old enough. My youngest will be 18 um, coming up
Okay.
in June. So they're kind of at that point where they're adults now, just about.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And you kind of have to do basically what I do is just step back and say, okay, let's hope I planted those good seeds and they just growing their own trees, basically. Uh, and even though you could tell by what they're doing that they could take a little different steps here and there, but you're just like, okay, just close your eyes, just be there, just be here for
Do
them
you
when when they need it. So
do
um
you have kids?
yes, yes, I do. I have three of my own, and I have a stepson. But my all of my kids, I keep telling them, you guys are perfect because you have a crazy mom like me, and and they're doing their thing. They're using their gifts when they need to. They have, especially like I know all of them use their intuition to get out of situations, or know not to go there, or know not to travel when they're hearing that little voice. My youngest is definitely my daredevil, so he rides motorcycles and all that other stuff. And one night he actually calls me up and he says, "Mom, I'm being told not to go right now, to wait about an hour." And I said, "Okay."
Wow.
And he was kind of young at that time, just around 18. And I said, "Okay." And then he's like, and then he found out that had he been on the road at that time, because some of his friends took off and went ahead of him, they got into an accident, he didn't.
Mm.
So he was spared from a motorcycle accident.
You know what?
So, and that's, I tell them, just, you got them, use them.
That's I think those kind of
The,
things like build confidence, over time,
mm-hmm,
when you pay attention and then you see the results of paying attention and and the
right.
obedience of that. And then you're like, okay, well, next time something happens like that, I better listen to you. Like, and it just gets like easier and easier with practice to follow that. Because
Mm-hmm,
there's been times when I had those little hints and I didn't listen, and then it's like,
mm-hmm.
oh man, I don't want that to happen again.
Well, we are human, aren't we? So sometimes we have to learn the hard way, as I say. And we, for some reason, it's right here in front of us. We're getting the advice, and yet, eh, that's not going to happen that way. And we get to where we need to go to, just with a lot more turbulence. So now, what when you were going through, your divorce, like you said before, and your career changes and all that other stuff, because those, divorces are traumatic experiences. People don't realize they're really life changing. uh you're having experienced that, you're in a relationship, you're trusting that it's going to be, like this, like some of our parents that have been 65 years together and all this other stuff. And you're like, I can't make it past 13 years. What the heck? Uh, but you change, and then you realize that those changes came at the right time, even though you had to go through a lot to get there. But they came at the right time to just send you off on your journey.
Absolutely. Well, and to be honest, that was one of the things, when I was saying those intuitions that I didn't follow. That was
Mm-hmm.
one of them. I mean, right before the wedding, there were several things that came up that I was just like, don't do it, don't do it, don't, all these red flags. But being young and everyone's showing up at the wedding and people are coming from all over, and just the pressure, and just kind of really in love and hoping that this is just a phase or something's gonna, that was a 13-year, like, live with the consequences, whatever. And definitely stayed way too long. Not being ugly about the person or anything like that.
Yes.
I I probably should have never got into it. I definitely should have never got into it in the first place, and I stayed way longer than I should have. But I was the first person in my entire genealogy that ever got a divorce. So there was a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
pressure there. I was in full-time ministry at the time and on television. A lot of people didn't like women in ministry in the first place, let alone a divorced
Right.
woman in ministry.
In our mystery.
So
Yeah.
when I didn't, I didn't even make the choice. He's the one who did everything, and otherwise I might have even stayed longer. Which, thank God, thank God. I can just say thank God. I wouldn't take back my kids. That we have our kids,
Mm-mm.
and a lot of lessons from the situation, and a lot of lessons I'm still living from those choices, because of that. But you know, being, because of that divorce, I was forced to have a career change. I was forced to have a location move, you know, like so many changes with that one choice,
Mhm.
because I, being in the ministry, there were a lot of people who wouldn't book me to do conferences anymore. And I did shift gears. And then I was physically ill too. So I was, you know, kind of trying to find my way with my health, you know, at the same time, because I was just, you know, and I don't think that the divorce helped physically, you know, for my health in general either. Like you said,
Right.
the trauma and all the change. What is it they say that like the one of the top 10 things that are the most, you know, stressful is like moving, divorce, new
Mhm.
job, you know, things like, you know, death in the family. You know, divorce is sort of death, except for kind of
It
worse
is.
because they're still alive. They're just rejecting you, you know. It's like, so, you know, I was going through it all, and I'm sure that had a lot of repercussions on my physical health as
Mhm.
well, you know. But I lived through it, and I learned, and I remembered, and there's a lot of takeaways from that. And I definitely would tell anyone who ever sees red flags, you know, and probably you too. Once you know and you've lived
Mhm.
those mistakes, you know, just like, no, don't do it.
Run! Run!
Trust
Fast!
me.
Well, that saying, "Love is blind," is so real. It's so real because we always, no matter what shows up, we're like, "Nah, it isn't as bad as I'm thinking. I just have cold
Yeah,
feet. I'm just
yeah.
nervous." You know, and I had the night before my wedding, I had an ex-boyfriend that I was truly in love with at that when we were together. Called me up and said, "Don't get married," and I still went through it. It's like, duh, you asked for the help, you asked for the guidance, and you look back now and you're just like, they were right there. They were like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, come on. But I know that I had to have these three kids that
Yeah.
I had.
I'm
I
actually
know that I was supposed to be their guide through.
I'm actually with the love of my life now, and he was my first boyfriend when we were together, high school, college, and I didn't have him calling me saying like, "Please don't do it" or anything. Matter of fact, I didn't even know where he was, but he was someone that I was thinking about and was definitely still,
Mhm.
um, you know, definitely still in love with. And so it's interesting
Mhm.
how God, me, source, creator, or
Yeah,
whatever, was able to like get back on track and be, you know, with the
right.
person that I'm with now, who is like my divine partner and has always been my love. And yeah, that was interesting too, because during the divorce, I kept thinking, I need to take off my ring. I kept having this dream about taking off the ring, and I was just like, I was so legalistic that I thought that that would be lying because the papers weren't signed yet. And
Hmm.
when I was going through all the stuff with dealing with my health issues, the doctor would muscle test me, and so the nurses. I was like, "Can you muscle test me and see if I'm like okay to take the ring off?" And they're
Hmm.
probably just like, "What are you talking about?" You know. But I'm like, "Can you test for other things?" You know. And so they tested, and it said, "Yeah, you could take the ring off." And then it occurred to me, I'm like, "Can you test to see if I'm still married to this guy?" And then it came back, no. And I was like, really? And I was like, can you test to see if I was ever married to this guy? And it came back, no. I was like,
Mm.
oh my God. I'm like, well, am I married? And it came back, yes. I said, okay, so when was I married? And it came back November 7th, 1987. I had no
Mm.
idea what that was. I was just like, whatever, shelved it, like, didn't have a clue, right? So
Right.
years later, when I did get back with my now husband, um,
Hmm.
we it was a little bit of a journey, but we did connect. And our first date, he like cooked for me, and he had this football bag because he was captain of the football team, and like so he had kept like all of this stuff in this bag of anything I had ever given him. You know, we wrote notes in class in college, and we had shared matching jewelry or matching, you know, clothes, or he had kept everything. And he had this calendar that was a 3-year calendar, 87, 88, and 89, and you could see like all 3 years at a glance, you know. And he
Mm-hmm.
had his birthday circled and my birthday circled for every year. And then November 6th was circled for every year. And I was like, whose birthday is November 6th? And he was like, you don't remember? And I was like, no. And he said, well, that's the day that you came to my football game and you put your name and your picture on my truck or whatever. And you were like, hey, call me. And I called you. And then like we went out on our first date on November 7th. And I was
Wow.
like, what? And he's like, yeah, that's our the 7th is our anniversary, or the 6th. I mean, we used to celebrate our anniversary. And I was like, I wanted to just go like, oh my God, we're married. But I didn't want to scare him, right? Because that just sounds like, oh, that's what my body was registering. It's like that blew me
Right.
away, because I was like, what is marriage anyway? Because we didn't like consummate anything. We were just you know, I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not that people don't consummate things on 17, but we were never
Right.
together the whole time, you know, like
Right.
that. And so later I had him blind test studied, like muscle tested, and he was also married that day. And it's like, that just to me was another like aha of like energy, and like what is energy and what is marriage and what are all these man-made things that we just conjure up and decide, oh, sign this thing and you are married, and
Right.
you sign this thing and you are divorced, and don't wear the ring or wear the, you know, it's like all these concepts
Right.
of taxes and, you know, what permits and, you
Mhm.
know.
Yep. Yep. And it's just your spiritual connection. And I believe that your actual marriage is when you actually decide to join together spiritually with a different level of love, different level of energy. Where, yeah, okay, we go before somebody. I mean, I perform weddings. I met, I say, you say I do, say I do, but to me, I can see the difference. I can see the difference when there is a couple that's going to last for a long time, and when there's a couple that you see it already, and you're like, yeah, somebody's not reading those red flags. But that's what they want to do. So okay, you got to go through that, right?
Yeah.
Because out of those relationships, we probably learn more about ourselves than any other experience that we could have had.
Yeah, I know. It is what it is, and there's no way to go back in time and fix it. So, like I said, there's still some residual from all of that, and also I'm
Mhm.
practicing sovereignty and love and forgiveness,
Mhm.
and just doing my best to have that radical acceptance that I was talking about. Of, you know, like, I'm cool, you can be cool over there. I'll love you from over there. You know, whether it's whoever it is. You know, like, you know
Mhm.
what, we're
Mhm.
good. I'm gonna do me, you do you, have a good time, bye bye bye. You know?
Yes. Send the person or the situation love, and that's it. You don't have to be in their presence. Is like the same thing I do with my clients. I tell them, write a letter of forgiveness, and they're like, I do I have to read it to them? Do I have to send that? No, no, no. This is only for you. You send out that energy. You could burn it afterwards and send that energy out. That's all that matters. You don't have to go to the person and say, oh, I'm sorry, or I forgive you, or this or that. It's your connection that keeps you stuck to that
Well, that's what's so
negative
that's
energy.
that's exactly what happened, Glenda. Is I was working with a guy named Bob Stevens, and
Hmm.
he, you know, they had told me I wasn't going to be here on the planet, and that was, this guy was the first person that came in my head, thinking I gotta like fix this before I go. I want to talk to him before I leave. And
Hmm.
so I started, you know, talking to this guy, Robert Stevens, who is my mentor. He's passed now. And he was like, oh, well, you just go fix it, go find, go fix that up and just clear that.
Mhm.
And so I thought he meant in real life. And so I
Mhm.
literally tried to find him on Facebook, tried to call, find his parents, anything to, follow the dots, his friends. And I hadn't heard from him or seen him since the late 1900s. Um, that's still cracking me up. But so, and back then we didn't have cell phones and Facebook, and so I
We had AOL.
yeah, yeah. So I did get in touch with his brother, and I kind of put it out there like I needed to talk to him, and he was like, "Oh, you know him? I don't know. I'll tell him, but I don't know." And he doesn't, he's kind of to himself, and so anyway, I did find him on a Facebook. There was a Facebook page, but no picture, no whatever. And I'm like, it says his name. This could be anybody. Sent him a message, and I was like, look, hey, I just want to talk to you. I just need 15 minutes of your time. It's very time sensitive. I don't care where you are. I will fly to you. I will, I won't bother you anymore. If I could just have 15 minutes. And I was like, please call me. This is not like a text conversation or a phone call even, but, please call me and see if we could set up something. And he said, what's up? And, he did respond. And I said everything I just said. And then like, I get nothing. So 7 days later, I contacted Bob, and I was like, Bob, what do I do if he won't talk to me? How do I clear this? Because I didn't want to just clear it for me. I wanted to clear it for my DNA because that affects my children. I was
Right.
actually walking. How it even came to me is I was taking a walk, and they had told me you have weeks, in the past, and
Mhm.
my oldest daughter was actually dating a guy and engaged to a guy who lived in Brian's old house, the
Mm.
guy that I was trying to get in contact with, and she was wanting to
Right.
break up with him. And she was the same age that I was when I was wanting to break up. Like there was a pattern. And so I was
Pattern.
like,
Right.
I got to do
Right.
this for myself and for my kids, right? So when
Right.
I told
Right.
Bob, I'm like, what do I do if he won't talk to me? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I tried to reach out. It's been 7 days. He's not, blah, blah. And he was like, honey, everything is energy. Like, what are you talking about? Talk to him. And I
Right.
was like, what? So he's like, just go on a walk, talk to him as if he's with you, say everything you would want to say, ask for forgiveness, whatever, whatever. Like we ended up having like a fight. It was dumb on my part. And I said a bunch of things I didn't mean to that I really just wanted to apologize for and clear.
Right.
So I do that thing. I walked around my block. I said everything with like my full heart, as if I was literally talking to
Mhm.
him. And then I laid down
Right.
in my driveway. I looked up at the stars, and I was like, okay, God, please fix this. Thank you for clearing it. Appreciate you so much. Let it clear for my kids.
Mhm.
And my phone was laying next to me on the concrete. It literally starts ringing. I look, and it's him. And I was like, what? That fast, right?
Mhm.
So I pick it up, and he's like, okay, I'll see you. Where do you want to meet? Blah, blah, blah. And like we met, and that was the end, the beginning of the end. It was just like, wow. Like that's how quick, like, thought is light, is energy, is real. Like there's no time and space.
Mhm.
There's no limitations that we make up, or I did anyway. And
Mhm.
now I have a whole course on divine partnership and how to teach people to remember their first love and to get back, or to find their first. Maybe they've never been in love. Maybe they just, need to remember their first love now. But
Mhm.
everything is energy, as you know. And it was funny that you brought that up. Like, you can just ask for forgiveness and not even have to call the person and be like, oh, I forgive you.
Right.
They might not even know, like, what you're for, like, what do you mean you forgive me for
Right.
what?
They may think they were this whole time they were right and that's it, and you were the one who was wrong. You should be asking for forgiveness,
Exactly,
not giving me for
exactly.
yes.
But in your
So
experience, when you've done that, like
mhm.
you said that it's for them, like what does that mean to you when you say that getting forgiveness or asking for, that it's really for you or for the.
right. For the client, it's not for the person that
So
they're,
explain
or the
that.
even the situation. Well, like you said, it's all the energy, right? When you release that energy, you're not holding on to it anymore. It isn't becoming dead in your body. It isn't causing you illness or diseases because that energy, you're just taking it out. It's like a vacuum cleaner that when you burn that letter, for example, it just burns up into the air. And I look at it as okay, now, you know, Mother Earth in her capacity, whether it be the air or actual earth, takes it, transmutes that energy, and sends it out as love. And then it continues to go all around the world,
Right.
right? So you give that love out, and somehow it comes back to you. So maybe somebody does the same thing with you, and you receive that love, and it heals something else in you because you're sending it. It's like kind of like a paying forward, I call it. Pay forward those forgiveness. Just release that energy, and by the exercise of just doing it, you don't have to go crazy like you did trying to find them. And it's all energy, so there's no need for you to actually face the person, especially if it was an abusive relationship or something like that, where it's not advisable to have the person in front of you. Um, and once you send out that energy, you will feel lighter, which I'm sure you did when you were there on your driveway looking up to the stars, and you're just like you could feel that lightness, and then the phone rings and you're like, wow, okay, there you go. And that's what I mean. It's everything is energy, every single thing,
Yeah.
right? Everything comes from something living, because people think, oh, this plastic, well, this plastic came from something that was living at some point, right? Everything, even chemistry is living, because, you know, science is living, plants are living, the rocks are living, everything. So you just ask the universe, ask God, ask, Mother Earth, to just take that energy, transmute it from negative to positive, and then send it out to help somebody else. So that's the way I see it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people see it, but I think that people got to wake up.
Yeah. And I think people are
So,
waking up, and I
mhm.
hope that I continue to wake up and see new things and be aware. And I love being awake. I mean, sometimes it's actually kind of hard to see things that other people don't see, but
Mhm.
I have a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration and a lot of like good feelings about the direction of where we're going right now as a planet. And I think people are more kind and loving, and that's my focus is, I try to stay away from the news because that's so
Mhm.
great. But podcasts like what you're doing, this is another forward motion of love and inspiration and
Mhm.
education. And I try to do the same thing with my podcast. And I know there's a lot more people who are popping up trying, to create some alternatives where people don't
Right.
have to watch all the doom and gloom and, oh, the world's going to end and just terrible, whatever. So I appreciate you from my whole heart for just what you
And I appreciate you coming on, giving all of us your perspective, and doing what you're doing, because it's hard to be out there. Especially like you said, a woman in ministry. That I know I found a lot of blockages when I was going through it. So it's okay, because we all have to hit our walls so we could learn how to go through them. So is there any last words that you would like our audience to hear from you? Or
Yeah, I do have a gift. I have a couple gifts for anybody. If you go to my website, right away, if there's a pop-up that comes up where you can get a free download on how to clear trauma. So you can have a clear field. So your income is just as good as your outcome, and you're having that good mutual energy going in and out, and how to clear your limbic system just at home, being able to do it on your own. And then if you're interested in something like ozone therapy or biofeedback, there is a link on the website that says ozone at home, and it'll give you a free video to explain like how to use ozone, why you want to use ozone, like how to get it, like, all the different sources of that. But I have my biofeedback on there. If you're interested in working with me personally, I can do long distance biofeedback and we kind of see what's going on. I specialize in like the mysterious kind of weird stuff because I do use my intuition as well as the software to get those diagnostics and send back the frequencies to the people. But I do soul audits. I have my podcast there. I have online classes that I hopefully will bring some education to people as far as like muscle testing, liver cleanses, outcome mapping, using energy to create and manifest. And but there's all kinds of great resources at drsharnael.com. And I know you guys have had it at the bottom here for you to find it, but I would love to work with you guys. And then you could find me too on any social media. One of the things that I love about this is that I can be home and not have to get on a plane, but I do miss like hugging people and signing books and hearing stories. So I'm very visual, as I mentioned. If any of you got anything out of this, hit me up and just like let me see your face in your profile and be like, oh, I'm sending you good vibes, and just say hey. And I love that connection of like actual visualizing who I'm talking to instead of just this broad scope of like, hi people wherever you are, I don't know what you look like, but I'm so happy to meet you. So
Well, truly appreciate everything you said today and everything that you basically your perspective, your experiences, because it's very important that others hear that type of uh, experiences and how you came about, because they could be going through the exact same thing. And then they don't feel so lonely or so out of the box, it's stuck because they don't know what to do. And I appreciate for all your services and for being here. And to everyone, as always, many blessings. Stay well. Namaste. And as always, love ya. Bye.